who is our new chair of the Board of Trustees, and Bob is going to do a very serious and very depressing presentation on his life. So, just be ready with your tissues and give a big thank you to and welcome to Bob Nolan. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. Morning. I think I've been set up for failure today, so I'll do my best to deliver. Are we on?
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Okay. This is a very personal view, so everything I'm going to tell you is about me, but it's also my thoughts. So don't take it away as gospel. That's the most important thing. Hopefully, this will be a good way for some of you to get to know me a bit better. Possibly to regret my appointment as chair, but that's too late. And hopefully I'll get to meet you all as well. So I'm going to do a very quick intro on diversity and inclusion, say a few things about deafblindness, a few numbers. And again, these are the numbers that I've researched. They may not always be accurate. And then the best part of it is about me. I do like talking about me. A lot of my friends have noticed that over the years as well. And then we'll wrap up with a little bit more serious stuff about how we all collectively can help people in situations like mine or similar, and then there'll be some questions and answers at the end. Now, school kids always ask me thousands of questions. Adults don't. You guys are going to be the exception. So I want lots of questions at the end, all right? This is audience participation, none of this quiet stuff. Right, on that note. So what is diversity? Diversity is the ways in which we all differ. That can be culture, can be education, qualifications, can be gender, can be ethnicity, nationality, a lot. I'm short. I'm different to tall people. So for me, we spend too much of our lives, I think, challenging differences. And you look at all the uneasiness in the world today, it's all about differences. We should be celebrating our differences. So for me, diversity is what makes us as a race so interesting. So inclusion is the way that we can create a level playing field for anybody with challenges. Somebody whose sight isn't great, who uses a wheelchair to get around, they're just as smart, if not smarter, than everyone else. So inclusion is about creating that level playing field so that we can all fulfill our potential as best we can. I've just put in a definition of what disability is, so I'll leave that. It's part of the 2010 Act. From the UK Disability Act. So it gives you a definition. The thing you have to ask yourself is, how disabling is blindness if you're a singer? How disabling is deafness if you're a lorry driver? So it's not quite as obvious and straightforward as it might appear. And I know you guys in here are far more aware of disabilities and deafness and blindness in particular, the most audiences that I speak to, but it's an important point for me. And then the last one is about successful organisations, whoever they are, wherever they are. It's really important that we do give everybody equal opportunities. 1/5 of the world population is touched by disability in some way. So basically, and that talent pool, if you like, is growing. So we can't ignore at all people with any kind of disability. We want to be successful organisations. We need to take that on board. Right, one of my favourite slides. I have an even bigger one with all sorts of disabilities on here, but for today I've just focused on the obvious ones. So these are just some people who've done fantastic things, overcoming the challenges, or if you like, just forgetting that they've even got these things. I mean, Beethoven for me is it's a miracle really, because his last few symphonies, which are listened to by millions of people the world over, and will be for centuries, he himself never heard. All the composition was in his head, which for me is fantastic. Evelyn Glennie I'll probably mention later. Can you all read the names? Because I can't. Yeah. Yeah? Good? Okay. Ray Charles, heard of him?
Yeah.
Hit the road Jack. One of his hobbies was flying planes. I wouldn't want to be in it. But what I like is it didn't stop him. Stevie Wonder, another singer. He challenged all his friends to a golf match at night. So he's not just blind, he's smart. So there's a whole heap of people here that I could talk about all day. Taha Hussein, he was the Minister of Education in Egypt in the 50s. Blind from birth. Just checking where the edge is. But what he did for Egypt is he made education compulsory for women. So, great achievement. There's plenty of others. There's even a deafblind politician from Malaysia. I can't see her name, so I can't read it out, but you can probably see her. But the one I like to talk about is Ezret Armagan. He's a Turkish painter, blind from birth. So think about it. He's never been able to see. How the hell, excuse the language, can you paint that if he's never been able to see? I can understand somebody who could see and lost their sight, but how can you picture a tree, a house, a mountain, and do that? Absolutely remarkable. So these are just people I like to talk about, because these are the people that have done amazing things and overcome whatever challenges they have to face. Right, now the good bit. These are some numbers. 50,000 sign language users in the UK, roughly 1 in 7. I suspect that number is going to grow. And what are the main causes? Now, when I was a boy, pregnancy-related illnesses were quite a common reason for deafness in a child. But that's slowly been eradicated, particularly in the Western world. So a lot of deafness in our society, unfortunately, is noise. Wearing personal stereos in your ear too loud, going to loud discos, etc., not wearing the right headgear when you're working out on the streets, etc. And then chronic ear infection as well, of course. Like the others, age is a big thing. So with sight, not quite as many in the world. I've got some numbers there for the world as well. So 360 million deaf people in the world, roughly 7 billion people. 285 who are blind, 2 million in the UK. Again, 1 in 3 over 75. So we're going to see a common trend there. Lots of causes, and I won't touch on RP because that's what I've got, and I'll mention that in a minute. But the most common form of blindness in the UK is age-related macular degeneration. But there's 2 there that are massive, glaucoma. And that's something everybody in this room can keep an eye on. Whenever you go to your optician, make sure you get your eye pressure tested. Make sure your children get their eye pressure tested. My uncle lost 60% of his vision in 6 months. He suffered blinding headaches. No idea what it was. Finally went to a doctor, and it was glaucoma. So keep an eye on your pressures and those who are loved to you. The other one is cataracts, the most common form of blindness in the world, and it's due to exposure to bright sunlight. So what's the solution? Wear good sunglasses. So if you're out on summer holidays, or your children are home from school, make sure they're wearing sunglasses when it's a really bright sunny day, because that's how cataract comes. Such a simple operation, but outside the Western world, very difficult. One of my colleagues who goes to Belize every year for 6 weeks. He spends the entire 6 weeks doing cataract operations, literally non-stop, while his wife sunbathed by the pool. So it's an easy thing to do, but it's also an easy thing to guard against. So do look after yourselves and your friends and families. And then, of course, people who are blind compensate with what they hear. People who are deaf compensate with what they can see. When you've lost both, that's very isolating, as people in this room are probably very well aware. And again, it's an estimate from Sense, no surprise to anybody, I don't think. And I guess I think it's 4/5 over 75 or over 65. So again, it's age-related. It's very important. It's very important for all 3 of those. And for that reason, as you can imagine, we're all living longer. All those 3 incidences are going to grow with time, not lessen. Most common form of congenital deafblindness is Usher syndrome, and that's what I have. And it was diagnosed by a chap called Charles Usher, who was a member of the Edinburgh Brewery family at the turn of the 19th century. He did his training in St Thomas's in London, but he actually was working in Aberdeen, which is where I spent most of my working life, the Aberdeen Royal Infirmary, when he found this genetic link between deafness and a progressive sight loss. And the condition has been named after him. The rest of his family, by the way, made beer. So at least one member of the family did something useful. So that's a bit about that. So effectively that's the preamble. So, starting with me. I was born with a 70% hearing loss. That was the bad news. The good news is that my best frequencies, the ones that I have, are at the low end of the spectrum. And that meant 2 things. 1, I hear voices better than I hear a lot of other sounds. And the second thing, it meant that my own voice was relatively unaffected. Being able to make yourself understood is enormous. And you can imagine nothing more frustrating than somebody who can't hear very well, who also can't make themselves understood. No sight loss, apparently, although I was clumsy. But then my daughter's clumsy, and there's nothing wrong with her eyesight. So, that's me. So I was born deaf, and never been anything different. And because of that, I've worn hearing aids my whole life. And I'm showing this photograph for two reasons. One, it shows part of my old hearing aid, which is basically a bath plug, as my friend used to call it, with a lead down to a box on my chest. And anybody who can remember their childhood or have children know that no child likes to be different. I was always different, because I had this box which basically said, this guy's different. Wasn't always bad though. I used to pretend it was a transistor radio in the school playground. So I used to get the plum roll in Thunderbirds, for anybody who can remember Thunderbirds. Good thing about hearing aids is that they've got smaller over the years. The bad thing, and it's important to remember this, hearing aids don't correct your hearing. Glasses do, they correct your sight, but hearing aids only amplify the mess that you hear. So if you hear noise, the hearing aid is going to make that noise louder. They are getting better, but they're never going to be as good and as accurate as the human ear. So, good news about hearing aids is they got smaller. When I was 13, ear levels turned out. That's what I'm wearing now. I've got one on each ear, back of my ear, if you can just see them. And for a 13-year-old who was just getting interested in girls, that was fantastic. One of the best. And since then, I've even worn canal aids, which is a small pink aid which goes right in the ear, which is practically invisible. The problem is, with my declining sight, I could never see them. I couldn't find them, so I've gone back to ear levels. So that's a good thing about hearing aids. They are getting better. And for about 20 years ago, I heard birds singing for the first time. And that wasn't because my hearing was getting better, it's because my hearing aids were getting better. The other reason why I showed you this photograph is because it's my mum's favourite. Apparently, I'm not as good looking now as I was then. So, one of the things you do, one of the great capacities we have as human beings is to adapt. When you've lost a significant amount of your hearing, you start relying on things like body language, facial expression. If somebody looks happy, you think this is a good place to be. If somebody looks thunderous, you turn around and start walking. I was always found it very difficult being asked to do the washing up because I never quite heard that one. But so what you do, you're looking at facial expression, then you start looking at mouth movement, and sort of necessity is the best teacher, never truer. So I learned to lip read naturally as a child. And that's why people who become deaf in later age, they find lip reading a very difficult skill to acquire. And for them, they can almost be more deaf, if you like, or more isolated than somebody who's grown up with it. So lip reading is a fantastic skill, very useful. It is actually tiring, because you have to concentrate. It's not a passive listening mode that you guys can get into if you want. You actually have to concentrate to lip read, so it is tiring. 50% guesswork. Some consonants look exactly the same. M and B, for example. So marrow, barrow. Sound different, but they look the same. So be careful if you ask a deaf person that you want to see his mum. Sorry, Liz, you're a bit slow here. So, there is guesswork. Context is also important. If you know what the conversation is about, you can pick out those key words. So, the other things about lip reading, when is it difficult to lip read? When the person you're lip reading is standing up against a bright window, and all you see is the black silhouette. If the person has a beard, if the person has a very strong accent, if the person is not even looking at you. And that's why group situations are tough, because you don't know who's talking. So yeah, lip reading is a great skill, but it's not easily done. So bear in mind, if you have people who are deaf working with you, that they're going to be more tired at the end of the day than you probably are for doing the same piece of work. Okay? So that's lip reading. This is an important one for me, because I'm passionate about my music. And there's a concept in the 70s and 60s when I was at school that deaf kids didn't do music. And we do. And we had old LPs at school, which I used to listen to, and I got into it. And in the mid-70s, I actually started Britain's first deaf pop group. As in, we were deaf when we started, Pete Townsend and the rest of them were deaf when they finished, but we were there first. We were absolutely useless. Lots of enthusiasm, no skill, which has kind of been the motto of my life, actually. But they just couldn't get over the fact that there were these 3 deaf 16-year-olds from a school for the deaf who were going around playing music. And we played every Saturday night on the school stage, which was wooden. We had a wooden floor, and we had deaf children come into the band nights and dancing and throwing themselves around the room who couldn't hear anything, but they could feel it. For the first time, deaf children could go to a dance on a Saturday night, throw themselves around the room, just like their hearing mates. It was so liberating, it was fantastic. And say we were interviewed on Pebble Mill at 1, for those that are old enough to remember it. And again, it was just about the fact that we were all deaf and they just couldn't get over it. More importantly, it changed things at the school I went to. I went to a school for the deaf, and music wasn't part of the curriculum, but it became part of the curriculum then. They realised that rhythm's important. If you can't hear yourself speak, rhythm means that you speak at the same pace. So all these things are good. And in fact, one of the cures, or one of the tools that we use now for people who have cochlear implants, when we're retraining them to hear and to listen, is to follow a song with lyrics. And especially choruses, because the words are repeated several times in a song, you can start to recognise or relate what you're reading to what you're hearing. And it's a great way to train yourself to hear voices better. So music's really, really important to me. And Evelyn Glennie, I'm sure you've all heard of. We did a concert with her at the Royal Albert Hall in the 70s, actually. She was the musician. We were those 3 deaf kids. And she played at the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games. And she never wears shoes. She uses her feet, bare feet, and she uses her body as a tuning fork. So that's how she can hear and feel what she's playing. And she is fantastic, no question, absolutely fantastic. Her hearing's got worse since I've known her. But amazing lady, amazing lady. So that's music for you, very important to me. That is actually our band, and you can see why Mum preferred the first photo, can't you?